So whenever that next case is, I think couple of days from now, I'll post that case right after this meeting, so that you get time to read it and understand it. And for this case, you didn't have much time, but you still did a good job, very good job. I'm happy.
Thank you, sir.
So, maybe you are all वो कौन सी पिक्चर आई थी एक अमिताभ बच्चन की पिक्चर थी ना उसमें वो कहता है ये लंबी दौड़ का घोड़ा है you are all long distance runners. So I think their IPO is not yet out, but they did what is DRPH, whatever draft. So their IPO will be out soon. Paytm's IPO, and it will be a huge success. I have no doubt in my mind. Flipkart is also very interesting. You know, Flipkart is the pioneer in Indian context, e-commerce, and Flipkart, Amazon, very interesting companies. You know, Amazon was in red. Amazon didn't make any money for a long time, but Bezos persisted with it. You know, I think he got a very small loan, some 20,000 or 200,000, some small amount from his parents to start the company. He started in the garage of his home. Took it to great heights. Very interesting company. Do you buy anything on Amazon? How many of you have purchased something on Flipkart? Has anybody purchased anything on Flipkart, Amazon?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Which one? Flipkart or Amazon?
Sir, both.
On both, sir.
Amazon.
Both में, so which one do you find better? Amazon or Flipkart?
Flipkart.
Why?
Amazon is better, I
Amazon.
think.
Okay. Where do you get better prices?
On Flipkart, sir. I think
Flipkart.
those are cheaper.
Yes, that's what I also found, you know. But Amazon is easy to use. That was I haven't used Flipkart much. My wife uses both, and now she is sticking more with Amazon than with Flipkart.
Sir, I just bought a book from
Okay.
Flipkart, and that was Macbeth from Shakespeare.
Okay.
And the first line was foul is fair and fair is foul. So it was, I think, by Shakespeare, not Adam Smith, I guess. I just
know.
want to ask.
I know. You are absolutely right. But Adam Smith used this line
Okay, sir.
to frame his argument. His argument basically is that human beings are greedy. You know, human nature works on greed. So he
Yes,
said
sir.
anything which enhances greed, which is foul, is fair. So self-interest. Actually, that is the philosophy of self-interest. That
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, we want PPT
Huh?
of all PPT.
PPT of what?
That ma'am taught us na in class. Maybe Narendra ma'am. I don't know the name of
Navroop
ma'am.
ma'am,
And
about data
you
analytics.
Navroop ma'am, yeah.
Navroop man's
And
PPTs.
that link,
Okay.
yes, and
Okay.
So Rasleen, I already texted Navroop ma'am to share the PPTs in the group. So
Okay.
she will be sharing by today evening or by tomorrow morning only.
okay, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
and about Pansar. Pansar will be also sharing the content with you guys soon.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure Adam
Uh,
Smith used Adam's. Okay, here, Gurpreet sir is here. Hi, hello,
yes, sir.
Gurpreet. Yes, yes, yes. Your video should be on. If bandwidth is not a problem, then
Good
please.
evening, sir.
Uh,
Evening, sir.
Gurpreet is here. Gurpreet sir is here. Welcome, sir.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good, good, good. So today we had a very good case discussion. We'll post the video. You can also review it. These students did an excellent job. Excellent job. And I had my apprehension, but they proved me wrong.
Very
Oh,
good, very good.
okay, so shall we start?
Yes,
Okay.
you should. Let me share my screen.
Do you want me to introduce you?
In the meanwhile, I request all the students to please turn on their video cameras so that Gurpreet sir can see you and you can easily interact with sir.
So, students, Dr. Gurpreet is
Good
uh,
evening, sir.
yeah,
Evening.
he is a well-known academic in
Good evening,
US.
sir.
He is an he graduated from London School of Economics, which is क्या top ranking है आपकी गुरप्रीत sir?
Well,
LSE
I
LSE is
will
the huh?
I will call it top ranking, of course.
Okay, well I think it is in top three. I think now it is ahead of Oxford and Cambridge,
Yeah,
right?
it's a depends upon the subject areas, of course.
Subject areas, of course.
Yeah.
And Gurpreet sir is also a well-known authority on information system security. And but besides that, he's also a jack of quite a few trades. He published my poetry book. He's working on my second book. And without much ado, let's hear from him.
Okay, can you see my screen? What do you see?
Yeah,
Business analytics.
Okay, let me. Okay. Do you see the presentation?
Not now. I think you have to share it again.
No, sir.
Okay. You can see it now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so welcome to this particular session. My idea today is really to give you an overview of business analytics and what it is and why it is important. Um, Dr. Pant graciously introduced me. I have been associated with Akal University for many years now, and particularly in terms of helping Akal set up the Akal Business School and this particular program, MBA with a focus on analytics. So there are a lot of misconceptions about what analytics is and how we should be working in this particular area, what the challenges are, what are we really trying to do. So we have a line of speakers coming up, at least two or three of them. They are going to go into more details of how they have applied analytics in their own work. So they're kind of case studies. So they're a little bit more advanced presentations. But in this case, I'm focusing more on the basic aspects of analytics and how these can be used and what we can do. So once I'm done with the presentation, we can have an open discussion if you have any challenges or questions that you might have. There are really several reasons that analytics has become very popular. And I'm quite involved in analytics, although as Dr. Pant said that my specialization is in cybersecurity, information security. That's what I have been doing for most of my life. But currently, I am also the Farrington Professor of IT and Decision Sciences at University of North Texas. So this is part of my role and responsibilities. But so I try to keep it very simple as to why we should be focusing on analytics. So there are really three reasons why analytics has become very important for us. I call them the boost, drive, monitor, and improve. In 60% of the cases, analytics is used to boost processes and cost efficiency. So anything that you do, if you can increase the efficiency of the process of doing work, and we can reduce the cost of doing that activity, then you're going to make a lot of savings in anything that you do. So in 60% of the cases, we see analytics being used to boost processes and cost efficiencies. And there are numerous examples about boosting processes and cost efficiencies. Of course, it could be from as simple as ensuring that you have the right kind of information in something like agriculture, to selling products, or to anything you can think about. The second main reason why analytics has become very important is that it is driving strategy and change, that we are now in a position to look at numbers and define which direction we are going to go. So if the data tells us that we have to take certain actions in a certain way and we have to change what we are doing, then and analytics is what is telling us. So in university environments, at least in the US, we constantly look at trends and numbers as to where the students are coming from, what kind of courses they are taking, so that we can customize and design our programs to fit the market need. And third important thing is monitor and improve financial performance. So clearly the bottom line for most businesses is that we are in a position to improve the financial performance of a firm, of a company, of an organization. So these are some of the reasons, the three primary drivers for our increased emphasis on business analytics. There are also three major trends in the area of business analytics. So if anybody has to be successful in this area, so you have to be cognizant, you have to be aware of these three major trends. And I have the percentages below them as well, which essentially means this is a growing trend in that direction, and that's where most of the emphasis is. So the three big trends are cloud computing, big data, and artificial intelligence, machine learning. So the big investment that you're going to see going forward in the world is going to be in cloud computing. That's a very interesting one. So when I was in school, I would have all my data on my own computer. Today, there is really no need to do that. You really don't need to have access to data on your own machine. You really need to be focusing on stuff that is better handled elsewhere. So hence we are seeing the emergence of what we call web services. Amazon is big into that area, Amazon Web Services. Google is big into that area. Microsoft is big into that area. So these companies have invested heavily into cloud computing, and you will see big trends in that. And if you can get qualified in that area, that will be an added advantage. The second big trend is what we call big data. So a lot of data is being collected about you, me, everywhere. You go on to Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or anything, that data is being captured. And we have to, companies try and figure out, what do we do with this data? How do we find opportunities to customize services or provide services to people in that area. So that's a big one. And then obviously when you have big data, the important thing for us to think about is artificial intelligence and machine learning, because how do you even compute that big data? That's a big problem for us. So in order for us to be able to compute and able to make predictions, then we start getting into artificial intelligence. You see, if you look into pure statistics, and you can think of it as a trend line. On one end are what we call explanatory models, which explain the current situation as is, which means we have the data, we are explaining something as is right now, right? Then you have models which predict the future, that this is the trend where you're going. So on the explanatory side, we call them covariance-based methods. So they sit on that one end. And then on the other extreme is AI and machine learning, which is helping us make predictions into the future. So these three trends are going to captivate the businesses in years to come. And I think anyone who is closely aligned with any of these three trends is probably going to be extremely successful. Okay. Then the question then still arises is, what is business analytics? And as I just said a little bit, I define it in very simple terms. It's descriptive, it's predictive, it's prescriptive, right? When I say descriptive, business analytics allows us to interpret the historical data to identify trends and patterns. So if we look at what things have been done in the past, we can use statistical techniques to identify trends and patterns. Why are certain things happening in a certain way? That's descriptive, right? So we're explaining it, describing it. The second aspect of business analytics is predictive. This is where we forecast the future outcomes. We say, if X, Y, Z were to take place, what is the outcome going to be? So it's predictive. And the third aspect of business analytics is prescriptive. It's the application of testing and other techniques to determine which outcome will yield the best results in a given scenario. So you get into specific scenarios and then you start modeling those scenarios to figure out what is the best path for you to take, right? So this is an important slide in a sense because it summarizes everything that you are doing or will be doing over the next 2 years. It's descriptive, predictive, prescriptive, right? That's what we are trying to do. And there are different techniques and tools that we will be using in order for us to get there. Okay. There are several benefits of data analytics. At a very simple level, we have more informed decision making. We have greater revenue. We have improved operational efficiency. So these are some significant benefits that we get once we start applying data analytics tools, because end of the day, if I have the data and if I have to figure out my decisions, are they going to be good decisions or bad decisions, or if I am able to increase my revenue in my company, or I'm able to do something better in a more efficient manner, then I have some benefit here, right? And those are some of the advantages that you see as far as data analytics is concerned, right? So that's another aspect that you need to be thinking about, right? So I'll speak for another 5 or 7 minutes, and then I'd rather have questions and discussions around many things. So another aspect that I would like you to think about, particularly in data analytics and business analytics, is the difference between some terms that we use, particularly what is data, what is information, what is knowledge, and what is wisdom. Now, this is an interesting way to look at the world, right? So once we say that we have data on its own doesn't do you much, right? So you might have rows and rows of data, but it doesn't do anything for you. You might have data on pesticides use in farming, but what use it's going to give you, right? Usefulness always comes from data when you are analyzing it. Once you analyze the data and it becomes information, and once the information is put into a given context, you interpret that information, it becomes knowledge. And once you use it, it becomes wisdom, right? So I'm sure many of you are aware of GPS applications, Google Maps, Waze, some of those applications, you must have them on your phone. They give you directions from one place to the other. Now, here is a screenshot of another application called Waze. Now, if you look at it, I'm going from point A to point B, and it is telling me that if I keep going straight, you're going to hit the traffic. It's data, right? But how that data has been analyzed, the red line and the blue line you see, it gives me the information that if I keep going straight, my travel time is going to be such and such. If I take a different route, my travel time is going to be different, right? Now, it is up to me to use that information and take a decision of which route I'm going to take to go from place one to place two, right? That is wisdom. So you will see in this application and Google Maps of the world, they have taken this whole concept of data, information, knowledge, and wisdom and applied it in a context such that they're using the data about accidents and driving patterns to come up with a visual representation of information, which allows you to become more knowledgeable about your path that you're going to take, and hence makes you wiser in terms of your travel, right? So this is a very simple example of use of data analytics in our daily lives, right? Now, if to explain this further, right, the data is that if you look at this red line, it's telling you that there's a congestion here. It's telling you there's a cop here, right? And then it's giving you the information. I'm repeating myself, but it's important. Giving you the information that there's an alternative route that you should take. And it's telling you that if you leave at a certain time, what time it's going to take for you to arrive. That's the knowledge and wisdom, right? Important aspects. So there is a correct use and then there is a wrong use of this. The correct use in all this is that if you are doing a proper analysis and moving from data to information and then to knowledge to wisdom, that's the correct use. But many a times, if the data is flawed and your analysis is flawed, the information you're going to generate is going to be wrong. So data is still the same, but your analysis was flawed, giving you wrong information, which ends up in misconstrued knowledge and which gives you ignorance, right? So while a proper and a good analytical technique will give you the right kind of knowledge and wisdom, at the same time, the use of a wrong analysis and the wrong interpretation that comes out of it gives you bad information, bad knowledge, bad wisdom. Again, there are several examples of such use, and there are many such cases. Now, I don't know if you have heard in the last 2-3 years, Boeing, which manufactures planes, they had 2 or 3 crashes. One was in Malaysia, another one was in Ethiopia, I think, and they had to ground their MAX aircraft, right? And this was largely because the data that was being generated of the aerodynamic flow of the planes was flawed. And the information that was being generated, while the data was saying that you should go down, you should maintain the cruise speed. The information that you're getting was opposite. And hence it ended up in 2 major crashes and resulted in the company grounding their aircrafts for over 2 years with so much of a loss. So there are so many other examples of these kind of losses. And then there are also issues about misconstrued constructs. Now, this is a very, very interesting graph, right? And it was published by Florida Department of Law Enforcement, right? So if you look at this graph, and it will tell you that visually gun deaths in Florida have gone down, right? But the visualization of the graph is flawed. It's the other way around, right? It's the other way around. Deaths have actually gone up, but how they represented it, you see this, look at the scale. 0 is at the top, 800 is the bottom, right? So they were doing it wrong, and sometimes the information that you have and gets misconstrued gives you the wrong kind of an information. Another concept that I want to share with you as far as data analytics is concerned is, again, very simple. Remember we talked about data, information, knowledge. Really, when we talk about computers, you're talking about input, throughput, and processing. So you input the data, you process the data, you create information, and that becomes your output. Now, some interesting things are happening here. Your data is your raw facts, right? And you're processing this is where you're looking at the raw facts, you're inspecting them, you're cleaning them, you're transferring them, you're modeling them using a range of techniques to create the right kind of information. So now where you guys sit in order to conduct your work is in this big yellow box, right? So think of your master's program, your MBA, as working in that big yellow box, inspecting, cleaning, transforming data so that you can come up with the right kind of a decision. So we will be diving over the next 2 years into that yellow box, right? Making sure that you know exactly what to do. So I did talk about this a little bit before. So this is another way of data processing, right? So I said you inspect, you clean, you transform, and then you model, you describe, you explain, and you confirm, right? So data goes into that yellow box. You're doing a descriptive analysis, you're doing an exploratory analysis, and then you're doing a confirmatory analysis. Now, each of those boxes, simple words, but there are techniques that we use to do each one of them, for descriptive analysis, for exploratory analysis, for confirmatory analysis, right? There are techniques that we use. There are softwares that we use, advanced softwares that we use. And those are some of the things that we will be focusing on as we go along as well. So with that, I would rather get into a more interactive session and start discussing things and talking about this rather than just a simple presentation. Any questions?
Good evening, sir.
Hi, Manjadar.
Hello, sir. Sir, in your presentation, you told us about the flawed analysis and the losses it caused to the company, so many crashes. So I just wanted to ask you that what are the things we can keep in our mind? What are the ways we can use so that these things doesn't happen to us?
Excellent question, Ranjinder. So remember, when you talk about data being transformed into information. So data is out there. It's all around us. It's
Yes.
around you, it's around me. I have the same access to that data as anybody else, right? Now, the question is, if I'm using a wrong analytical technique to analyze that data, your analysis is going to be flawed, right?
Yes.
So hence it becomes very important for us to not only use number one, the right technique, right? And the second thing we do is we always triangulate. We always look at multiple sources, of data and we look at it from multiple perspectives. Now, there are techniques that allow us to do that, right? And we will be discussing those techniques. So if you just focus on one particular technique, it may not give you the right kind of an answer. It may give you only one perspective. Think of this. Think of going into a building, let's say Taj Mahal,
Yes.
right? So you walk into Taj Mahal, the main complex, you see something, right? You go from the back side of Taj Mahal, you see something else,
Yes,
right?
sir. Of course.
So
Sure.
both perspectives are right, but none of these perspectives on their own is going to give you the complete picture of what
Yes.
Taj Mahal is. So you got to look at from multiple perspectives. The same thing is with data. You can look at data from a very singular perspective. It's going to give you a story. It's definitely going to give you a story. But they, but you've got to look at from multiple. There's an example I will give you. There's a very interesting example. Some of the words may be alien to you, but I will try and explain them. There is a grocery store chain in the US called Safeways. It's more popular in Europe than in the US. So Safeways used to carry or still do a type of cheese, right? And it's called cheese, right? Our Indian paneer is a kind of a cheese, a cottage cheese, right? So similarly, there are different kinds of cheeses that are produced. And one of them is called feta cheese, F-E-T-A, feta cheese. It's a special kind of a cheese which is fermented, very expensive. It's not a cheap cheese because there's a whole process that goes behind it. So what Safeway found was that this particular item was a slow-moving item. Not many customers would buy it, right? Only a few customers would come and buy that cheese. So what's your logical conclusion?
From this thing? Like,
why should I carry this? Why should I have this cheese in the store when very few people are buying it?
but there are some things which are expensive. Very few people can afford it, but they're still in the market.
Yeah, but if I'm running a business, my first logical instinct is, very few people buy it. Why should I carry it? Why should I have this whole process to carry this? But that's one perspective, right? But what they also found was they started analyzing the data as to who are the people who are buying feta cheese, right? So feta cheese doesn't move very quickly from the shelf, but then you start looking at who are the people who are buying it. And then they correlate who are the people buying this, who are their customers, and who are the people who are buying feta cheese. And what they found was their highest paying customers, people who spent a lot of money were the people who were buying feta cheese. So if they removed feta cheese from the shelf, they would lose those customers. They would probably go somewhere else, right?
Definitely.
Now, looking at just one piece of information about feta cheese is a singular analysis, is a flawed analysis. But looking at from multiple perspectives allows them to come up with a better decision, right? That's what I talk about flawed decision. And you have hundreds and thousands of examples around this. So when we are looking at data,
Each and everything.
You have to look at from multiple perspectives, right? That's what will bring in value. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. This really helped me.
Any other questions, folks? See, this is an introductory session. So we have several other sessions planned, and I think some of them are probably going to be a little bit more overwhelming to you. I mean, I kept it extremely simple. So tomorrow you will have a session Who's presenting tomorrow?
Williams, Ken.
Kane Smith. So
Yes,
Kane,
yes,
Kane is going to be talking about the use of analytics in managing cyber threats. Very specialized topic area. Very, very specialized topic area. So I don't want you to feel overwhelmed with that topic area because it's such an advanced topic area, but it gives you a glimpse of something else, right? For example, when you have security threats come on the internet, how can we predict where the next threat is going to come, or how can we predict the pattern of those threats, right? So that we can manage them and minimize them. So that's the kind of work Kane is going to be talking about. Then we have another presentation on the 23rd, right? Or 26th, on 26th, which is a presentation that's going to be given by Wei Shi. So she is actually using analytics to understand why misinformation and disinformation gets disseminated, right? So we call it fake news. You must have heard about it, so many a times newspapers, TV channels, they broadcast news without proper analysis, without proper perspective, and suddenly they have to retract the news. So that spreads misinformation, right? So there's a lot of misinformation with COVID-19. How can you control COVID-19, right? So bottom science tells us get vaccinated, right? But there was a lot of misinformation that was flowing around in the world as to how you should be controlling or curing COVID-19 or coronavirus. So that's misinformation. So her work is around using analytics to understand different aspects of it. So she's going to be talking about one aspect. So again, it's an advanced topic area. The idea is not to scare you and overwhelm you. Idea is to give you a glimpse of the kind of work that gets done in these areas. So you have these two examples, right? Kane is a professor at University of North Carolina, Greensboro. He was my PhD student, right? So Wei is also my PhD student. So she's actually getting her exam done next week. And she's joining as an assistant professor at Appalachian State University. So both of them, I have connections with them being my students. So listen to them and ask questions. Again, some of these presentations may be difficult to comprehend, particularly at an early stage of your career, but nevertheless, they are interesting ones. Okay. Any other questions?
Sir, you also talked about the descriptive analysis and predictive and prescriptive. And there is one I've heard about the diagnostic. So can you tell me about that? Diagnostic analysis?
Yeah, so in analytical world, we either describe, right? Describe the current state of affairs. We explain the reasons behind it, or we predict, and then the shades in between. Think of it as a continuum. At one end is descriptive or explanatory, right? So that is, we are explaining the world as it is. Why are things happening the way they are happening? And the other extreme is prediction. When you talk about diagnostic, that is somewhere in the middle. You're looking at evidence and saying, okay, this is the conclusion I have. Because A, B, and C occurred, then you are concluding, right? You're diagnosing and coming up with an answer for it, right? It is closer to descriptive. It's on the, if you look at the continuum of descriptive to predictive, it is sitting in the middle towards the descriptive side, because you're explaining it and diagnosing. You're not creating anything new. You're not predicting anything, right? Diagnosis is, you see, if look at the human body, your blood pressure is 120/80. That's data. Okay, I'm describing your blood pressure. Your cholesterol level is whatever. HDL is so on, LDL is so much. You're describing it. It's descriptive. Now you have to interpret that. Okay, then we say we correlate. We correlate your high blood pressure, or your blood pressure is 130/90, right? You are 60 years old. Your blood cholesterol level is such and such, right? My diagnosis based on all this is that you probably have hypertension, right? So I'm using the same. First is I'm describing it, then I'm analyzing it and drawing a conclusion. Now, then when I'm predicting, I said, you know what? I know this because I looked at 100,000 or 1,000,000 people who had 130/90 blood pressure and such living conditions and such eating patterns, right? And we predict based on this data that people who have this kind of a profile, whatever that profile is, this kind of a profile have a higher propensity to suffer a heart attack, right? That is predictive. That is being done by using big data, because I looked at 1,000,000 records. I looked at 1,000,000 records, and then based on that, I'm modeling a predictive model, which is giving me an answer, right? That's prediction, right?
After diagnosis.
Diagnosis, then you make a prediction. So I mean, they're all closely related. Now, for each specific aspect, there are tools and techniques that we use, right? So for each kind of analysis, for each specific, these things get very, very advanced. I mean, I'm not a statistician myself. I use statistics, but I do it for my work. But when you talk to pure statisticians, they really go into a lot of depth. And we are not trying to make you statisticians. We are trying to make you business analysts who are going to be using it, but not necessarily be statisticians, right? So statistics is a foundation to a lot of stuff. We are not creating you as we're not positioning you as a statistician, right?
It's almost similar, sir, no? Like making prediction and or diagnosis. It's almost
They're similar.
about.
Yeah, they're all very similar. It depends upon what the context is, what you're trying to do, right? It depends upon the application area. It depends upon a lot of other things. So you're right. I mean, they're close. They're not too distant in that sense.
Like we can't differentiate them totally. That they are totally different and they are almost near
Yeah,
and common in some areas.
right. I mean, what happens is that there's a very thin line which is differentiating one from the other, right? So very, very thin line. And it becomes very difficult for us to, can I take this call for a minute?
Yes.
Right. So what I was saying was, there's a very fine line which differentiates from one kind of a prediction to one kind of analysis to the other. And as we advance in the use of these techniques, there is constant debate about this among data scientists as to which technique we should be using, right? So one of the things that you will learn in the course is something called formative and reflective. Those are two words that you will probably see being used in one of the courses, right? Formative is exactly what it is. What are the things that come together to form a construct, right? Not physical things, a construct. What are the things that come together to form it? So if you were to think of something as a arrow, right? Let me draw this for you, and then you will see what I mean. If you were to think of this as right, you see this. So if you have arrows coming in, right, this is formative. Right? If you have arrows going out, this is reflective. Right? So which means you will say A, B, and C come together to form X. Right? You can also say Y is reflected in A, B, or C, right? So if you see that, if I look at A, B, and C here, all these three things together come and give you X. You're looking at a formative construct. If you say, I'm looking at Y and I'm looking at Y through A, B, and C, if I see A, B, and C, I'm saying, oh, this is explaining what Y is. This is reflective, right? So you will see these two constructs being talked about. Now, the reason I say is, if you are building a model to predict the future, right, you have to use different techniques for reflective, different techniques for formative, and you cannot mix them, right? 15 years ago, people were mixing them, right? So advanced statistics tells us you can't. So even as we have progressed in our research in these techniques, we are refining them as we go along. So there is no perfect answer, but it's an improvement every time around we start doing these things. Okay. Yeah. So it's a very high level introduction to a very complex topic area. Yeah. It does become complex as we go along, but that's fine. That's why we are here. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
What did you say, Rasleen? I didn't hear you.
Good evening, sir. I have question.
Go ahead.
Okay, sir. First of all, it takes too much time to collect data, then interpreting into information, then up to go to wisdom. It takes too much time. And if I talk about any company, they set up the different department for this, or like only managers or some people will do that. How it takes place, sir?
Yeah.
Like
So,
it is a very important area to collect information.
Right. So we are doing this all the time. So every company will have divisions and areas which are dedicated towards data collection, right? So let's take Vodafone as an example in India, right? So how do you know the traffic congestion on the network? How would you know? That's data that they see where the traffic is coming from, which tells them whether we need to put another tower somewhere or not. If they don't, they will lose customers to another competitor, right? If your calls are dropping all the time. So that data is constantly being collected as we go along. But in certain other cases, you have dedicated divisions within companies which are going to collect data. Right? Now, when we talk about research, we do collect data all the time. We engage in that practice. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes time. These things are not simple. These things do take time. But that's what we are trying to do here. Yeah.
And if we have to take the quick decision about that, then what we can do? Like something that is very important, that we have to decide something on some specific area, then the data collection will take too much time. Then at that spot, what we will do?
So, okay, you see, there are, you divide your decisions broadly into three categories, right? Decisions that you have to take. There are strategic decisions. Think of a triangle. At the top are your strategic decisions. Okay. At the bottom are your operational decisions. And then you have things in the middle, right? For strategic decisions, which are going to determine which direction we go into, will require good analysis and data, because that has implications of what the company is going to do, right? So you need more time for those. But there are certain operational decisions which may not have an impact on the strategic direction of the company. Those you can take almost immediately, or there are techniques we compartmentalize. You take a small decision and you see the implication of it, and then you take another decision, you see the implication of it. So you keep on doing that. So there are techniques, again, that we use in order to do that.
Moreover, it's about the practice. Like if you're doing this, you will definitely get experience of doing this thing.
Oh yes, yes.
More about the practice.
Oh yes. You see, end of the day, data can only do so much. It has to be interpreted by humans, right? So in English, we use a phrase called gut feeling. You familiar with that, right? I have a gut feeling. That I have a gut feeling. So gut is your stomach. So I have a feeling that this is what's going to work, right? What is a gut feeling? Gut feeling is nothing but experience. I have seen this before. I have done this before. I saw a similar thing before, and I know this will work, right? So that is gut feeling. So, but gut feelings have to be data driven too, right? So we are populating them so that the decisions we end up taking are good decisions.
Balance between the both.
Exactly. Right? No, very good, very good.
But sometimes our experience also gets failed then.
Yeah, nothing is guaranteed in life, right? Things go wrong. Of course, things go wrong. You know, I think what we are trying to do here is minimize the error, right? So our objective here is let's be informed in our decision making, minimize the error so that the chances of success increase. That's what we're trying to do, right?
We have to be humans at the end. We are humans at the end.
At the end of the day, we are all human. So
yes.
As they say, to err is human. You know, we are all going to make mistakes, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with it.
Yes.
Right. But we want to minimize that, right? Using all the techniques and tools that we have. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Good. All right. So this is.
So Gurpreet, just picking up on that that thread, you know, the gut feeling. And I've used that slide, you know, data, information, knowledge, wisdom for a long time. Is it that we have traded gut feeling with something which is more machine driven, you know, more computer driven, and diminished the human ability to take gut feeling based or intuitive decisions with all these algorithms? And so is this a forward going step, or this is a retrograde step?
You know, that's a great question, Smendra. I think what we have done is we have in a perfect world, it's okay to give machines the ability to do certain things for you, right? But not at the cost of not understanding why a certain decision is being taken in a black box. And there are many such examples out there, right? So, for example, right, statistics is a great example, right? It's a so I have newfound love with statistics, so I'm enjoying it a lot as I dwell into a lot of it. You see, when I was in school, uh, we did the whole statistical analysis by hand, right? So we knew why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? Today, the focus has shifted from I know what I'm doing, I have the data, I'm going to put that into a software and let the software give me the answer. And then I'm going to look at it. So I'm relying on the whole technique to be automated in a software. And we will be teaching those softwares to the students as well, right? But you always have to understand the logic behind why you're doing what you're doing, and then give the control over to the software, right? Or the machine. So if you don't understand that, you're probably going to do something fundamentally wrong. So you need to understand the reasoning behind it. And unfortunately, what we have done in the world today is we're placing more reliance on the machine than the human judgment in that sense. In some cases it's okay. In others, it may not be okay, right? But all right, but that's a very big topic area to discuss. I'm happy to discuss that. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Wonderful. All right. I know it's morning for me, but it's late in the evening for you guys. So enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will connect again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
This has been very good, and I'm sure students will keep these things at the back of their mind. This is something new, but it's not really new. When I went to US in '91, RPI had a decision sciences department. That's where I got my master's. So this is, I can't even say that this is new wine and old wine and new bottles or whatever is the expression, but something very interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. If I have to study something all over again, I'll probably be in data analytics, and great area. And you did a very good job of putting it across simply, and students could relate to it, as I can see from their questions. So great session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir. I think I'm attending the sessions like a student. Pan sir and Gurpreet sir lectures, I'm attending like a student, and I can easily say that all of the sessions are very, very informative, and uh, you are not only teaching, but you are inspiring the students to learn new things. So that is totally a wonderful session, sir. So thank you so much for
Great.
giving me this opportunity to coordinate and to learn new things also, because I'm also new to this area.
You are the one who is making all this possible. you,
No, sir.
you are the thread, which keeps everything together. So great. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay,
Good.
folks. So we'll end this session and restart again tomorrow, 9 a.m. And whatever sessions are there, you have the schedule with you, and very efficient process is there to make things happen. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being.
Thank you so much, sir. So with this, I want to thank each and every student who joined us in this late evening for the session. I hope you have so much, you have gained so much knowledge in the session which is delivered by Professor Gurpreet sir. So along with this is the end of the day and wrap up of all the sessions, and we will meet tomorrow right at 9 a.m. And yes, remember we have to gather at 8:55 a.m. in the morning. So thank you so much all. Have a nice day ahead, and that's all from my side. Thank you.